Hello, David Zritsky for the Bond Experience. Welcome back. I'm here to talk about 007 Road to a Million Season 2. Now, before we get into the details of it, I want to talk about Season 1 and kind of reset the table a little bit. I liked Season 1 of Road to a Million. I didn't love it. There were some things that I really did like about it. I loved hearing about the competitors' stories individually and how they were shaped throughout the competition. I really enjoyed the focus of locations, especially the Bond locations. And I really enjoyed the way it was shot. I mean, it was beautifully shot. I think so many people of you said that out there, that the cinematography was second to none. It felt like a Bond film. But there were certain things, because I was able to befriend some of the contestants. I really enjoyed a lot of the contestants and their stories. And people like Jen, for example, well, I just feel like they didn't really have a chance to expand the way they embrace Bond. I feel like Bond was almost put into a quiet corner, given sort of a DB5 smokescreen, if you will, and we didn't have a big concentration of James Bond or 007. Well, I'm happy to say that things have changed. There's been some pretty important changing of the format of the show, and I was able to actually watch each one of the episodes before they debuted. Let me explain. A few weeks ago, the Amazon and their partners reached out to me, and they asked if I would like to receive some press information, some press packs, some images, an updated trailer, and actually see the show weeks before it came out to get intimate with it, to watch the different series. And I said, absolutely. Give it as much as you can, and I would love to talk about it with a very open mind. I know a lot of people sort of closed their mind. They said the first season wasn't for them, but I was willing to give it a different point of view because I had heard that the format had changed. So, with screener in hand, I digested each episode. And I'm here to tell you, if you wanted to stop this 1 minute into it, this is not season 1. This has had significant improvement. I'm going to talk about the different areas of improvement, what I liked, what I think still can be enhanced, maybe in season number 3, but I'm going to get into some of the detail. Now, I need to tell you, because there's fear in your face right now that I'm going to spoil everything. Let me explain. I have donned my 60th anniversary Omega watch and my 60th anniversary Olabar Brown Dr. No Terry Polo, because this is going to be color coding of spoilers and no spoilers. You see, this blue shirt will represent when I'm giving you no spoilers, or I should say no significant spoilers. No spoilers about, for example, too much into the contestants, too much into what happens, and I'm going to keep it very high level. As soon as my shirt, and I'll give you warning, switches to the red Dr. No Polo, that's your warning. That is your warning symbol and color to say, I'm going to get into spoilers. Now, the happy news that you should all be taking is I'm never going to spoil everything. It's something I truly feel passionate about. I don't want to tell you who won. I don't want to tell you if there is a final winner. I don't want to tell you what each person won and, what the different exercises and challenges that they had, who won those challenges. I want to keep something to secret. I want to Look, I enjoyed this so much. I want to get you to watch this, quite frankly. But I will dive into this because I know some of you are saying, do I spend the time? 8 episodes is an investment in my time. And, well, let's start. A good place to start would probably be with the contestants, because just like last time, this is probably my favorite part. Hearing the different stories, you've got an incredible amount of diversity, and I don't mean typical diversity. I mean diversity of backgrounds and relationships. You've got some friends, you've got brother and sister, you've got spouses, and every one of them treat their partner a little bit differently. One of my favorites, for example, are sisters. And these sisters, one of them is an influencer. So a lot of people sort of underestimate who they are and what they can do. But you know, they're a force to be reckoned with, and they're one of my favorite couples to watch throughout the series. I will also say, for example, that it's important to note that Barbara and Michael, as in, yeah, that Barbara Broccoli and Michael G. Wilson, chose these contestants, which means they were still a big part of 007 Road to a Million. They weren't absent. This wasn't a clean handover to Amazon. Yes, Amazon was still very much engaged and alive and well, but Barbara and Michael still chose these contestants, which I think they have a lot of dimensionality to them. The locations that are focused on in this series are very James Bond ones. I mean, you've got Austria, you've got Thailand, you've got London, you've got Mexico, and you've got the Bahamas. And there are so many things that happen within those locations. First of all, there's direct competition. That is one of the changes that I've seen. Teams now compete directly against each other. Teams can eliminate rivals. The format twist put contestants' fate into other teams' hands, which is really interesting. And then one pair is eliminated every single episode. Another change of pace. And then the losing team has to leave the competition. Again, these are all pretty significant changes. But all along, I felt like they were really delivering much more immersive Bond experiences. First of all, the level of suspense that was put up there. You didn't have this kind of slow slog. You have really now, in many cases, cliffhangers, things that you don't know are going to happen. So there's new international locations in each episode, but now in each episode, we get our wish, which is featuring these Bond references, these cameos and Easter eggs, iconic props, and even classic cars, which is always a nice thing when that happens. And then you've got these enhanced challenges. You've got these tasks that include what happens if you need to scale the Bangkok towers? What about shark diving or intelligence gathering or alpine cable? Literally hanging on to a cable and navigating a cable. And this thing looks so scary. That is one of the things they haven't lost from season 1 to season 2 is the ability for the film crew, the production crew, to put you into these immersive moments, except they do it better this time because now you've got all the contestants who are acknowledging the world of James Bond. And I don't think this is a spoiler because this is in the trailer where you actually see one of the contestants humming the James Bond tune. He hums a James Bond tune. And that in and of itself tells you that you are in the world of Bond. There is a cameo. Again, I'm not spoiling anything. There is a cameo in one of the first episodes that tells you, wow, there's some interesting crossover between the world of Bond and the world of games and the world of reality. And this cameo is a individual directly from Skyfall, but it factors in very nicely, especially from an analysis standpoint of what the competitors are going to through, and also how close do they feel they are to James Bond. And that's the first time that me as a watcher, as somebody that's enjoying this, says to myself, okay, good. So these people are in the whole idea of cosplay, of mindset, of philosophy, of they are going to be going through James Bond adventures. Now, I'm going to put a little asterisk on this because that would be fine, except one thing they did much better than season 1 is this unbelievable immersive music. So yes, there is James Bond music throughout. And the reason I'm getting so dramatic and slow in the way I'm saying this is whoever was in charge of cueing and keying the music and aligning it to the appropriate moments or the appropriate challenges or the emotions deserve some sort of Oscar or Chloe or BAFTA or whatever you want to give them because it is so good. It is so appropriate. And I will tell you, I have a favorite episode. And because I don't want to give you a spoiler yet, I'm going to hold that. But there is a musical cue that happens during this moment where I got chills. I did. And that's the last thing I'm going to say without getting into spoilers, that this series, 8 episodes, hit me a little bit more emotionally, yeah, than season one for sure. And that is because they not only get to know the stories, the way they weave things together, you find these moments of really funny things happening. You find these moments of really sad stories and sad things happening. You feel this interplay of jealousy with people. But the other thing that you really feel is, and this was very strange, and I did not forecast this, the group that I thought I was going to root for throughout the whole entire thing from the beginning changed. It was not the group that I wanted midway. It changed. And I'm not going to tell you if my rooting favorite group won or not, or how far they got, but I will tell you that it changes because of the dynamics, the personalities, what they do to have to succeed. All these things interplay. And I will tell you, the producers and the director, they moved things along much more like a Bond movie this time than before. Last time there were these silo challenges. This time it moves along in a much better way. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, so that's my non-spoiler version. I think I made it very clear that I enjoyed this, I have to say, much more than the first series. The first series, I really enjoyed the contestants, but this, I enjoyed the contestants plus. And the plus was the embracing of Bond and really paying it forward and even giving me a certain level of suspense, like a Bond movie, and moving it through, that it felt like it had this kind of loose plot to it, if you will. But it was the format changes that really made it hit home with me. For those of you that want more information, or if you want to gauge of, whether you want to invest the time to watch this, I'm going to go to the spoiler version of my review. And I told you about the color change. Let's do this thing. Okay, what does red mean? Red means spoilers. For all of you still hanging on, this will be the spoiler portion. But I think it's important to get into this. I'm still going to leave some things to mystery. So don't think I'm going to spoil everything, tell you the ending, tell you which contestants won which things. No, you have to discover that, just like a Bond movie, for yourself. However, let's now step back and get into some of these details. For example, one of the aspects that I talked about was the different competition. And the competition itself used to be history questions and things like that. We were all kind of scratching our heads like, is this a Bond show? Why are they asking history questions? Now what they've done is they've had a lot of different versions, these competencies, and they have like an elimination structure with what they call killer questions. And killer questions could be figuring out anagrams, it could be codes, it could be finding things on certain missions. What I personally liked as a Bond fan is I always talk about James Bond as a very capable character. It's one of the reasons why I love James Bond and sort of living the lifestyle of James Bond, is because he seems so competent. It's this competency level. So they explore that in this game. They have things for skills. They have things for memory. They have things for bluffing, learning how to bluff and seeing if somebody's bluffing, and intelligence gathering. They have body language analysis, evasive maneuvers, psyops. They have things that where you're playing cards and you have to do not just memory, but really analyzing an individual and knowing not only body language, but humans and interactions, and a little bit of guesswork, which is always about James Bond. So it's not, in this case, in this season, it's not just about crazy, scary challenges. Yes, there are still those, but I felt like this time they were aligning it more to the competencies of Bond. For example, there is a challenge that takes place with scuba diving underwater. And I told you in the non-spoiler version about a particular cue of music. Well, when they go to one of the locations, which happens to be the Bahamas, when they go to the Bahamas, you see them hit the water, and then you hear Thunderball music like na 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 ding ding ding. And I was like, yes, as a Bond fan, I was like, oh gosh, somebody got the note. Thank you for getting the memo. Yes, I want my Bond game show to still have musical cues and moments to immerse me into it. That's when it felt like it was very James Bond. And there are Easter eggs. And the Easter eggs, you want to definitely look for the Easter eggs. I'm not going to tell them all to you. But the fact that, this is taking place in Thailand may conjure up all thoughts of the man with the golden guns. So maybe the golden gun shows up. And obviously the Aston DB5 in the trailer. I'm not telling you anything you don't know. I, I think there's even a competition, a challenge that is shooting a la Skyfall. That's all I'll tell you. Shooting a la Skyfall. And that was a good one. That was one that I think they created the right amount of suspense as opposed to, again, season one, where the shooting one, to many people, may have been underwhelming. And that's a comparison, I'm sorry, I couldn't help but making. Throughout all 8 episodes that I was able to watch, I really stepped back and I did have a comparison about half of the way through. And then I sort of sat back. I remember turning off the screeners and I sat back and I said, you know something, this is unfair to season 1. It's unfair to season 2 as well, because I want to really take season 2 as its own entity. So, for example, the enhanced challenges that I talked about really were a build on a foundation of series 1, of the season 1, because in this case, the stakes were elevated. They really were. They were elevated, but the fact that you could eliminate people, the fact that you could meet the other contestants and sometimes have to work with them, sometimes you had to try to eliminate them and be competitive, or what I like to call cooperation. Cooperate, but you're still in the competition, elevated the stakes and the suspense, and it was more like a Bond film. Because in Bond films, you have betrayal. You have frenemies. You do. So if you tied all these elements together, it made it more Bond. Now, of course, it would not be my channel if I didn't talk about products, right? Merchandise, and we're surrounded. So there were a couple that I noticed right away. There's probably even more that were involved, but these were the ones that I could see pretty clearly. Bogner. You see quite a bit of Bogner, especially in the Austria scenes. Boots, clothing, you can see the B everywhere. It's pretty present. Omega. All the contestants are wearing an Omega watch. It's the No Time to Die watch, but the watch also factors into one of the challenges, so watch for that moment. You see NPL, at least I recognized NPL. A lot of people were wearing the NPL cashmere and sweaters. I saw a couple of Oliver Brown pieces, or at least I think they were Oliver Brown. Definitely Bollinger. You see a nice chilled bottle or two amongst the challenges. We saw Aston Martin pretty prevalently, even in and amongst the trailer, so that's not a spoiler. And Globetrotter. Globetrotter features very prevalently. In fact, when a case opens up, I saw the lining, I'm like, you're a Globetrotter, aren't you? And so, yeah, all those things came together, and you will probably see even more than that, but those were the ones that I spotted sort of right away. And now we've got to talk about Brian Cox, because I think one of the things with the return of the controller, what I think they've done better in season 2 is they've created a better storyline and reason. Because I did a video around season 1 where I was kind of scratching my head, like what's Brian Cox there do other than to narrate and help the viewer at home with, exposition? What else is he there? What's his motivation? What is his modus operandi? What is his why? And I think the why in here is perfect. I mean, he's really kind of test and analysis of MI6, and they show MI6. So you have other individuals, you have other voices, you have this woman who is his right-hand person, if you will, kind of assisting on this. So you get to know other characters in MI6. And I think that this view of global operations, this whole understanding of the organization, MI6 that he represents, says, oh, he's not really a bad guy. He's just a tough as nails MI6 person trying to figure out who should maybe get into the double O. Is it one of these individuals and they just happen to have, oh, I don't know, an incredible financial and monetary gain in it? It's an interesting premise that if you embrace it and have fun with it, it is a lot of fun. Now, as part of the spoiler section, I am going to be talking about locations. I'm not going to give too much away of the details of the contestants and the locations or the prizes. But I will say this, the fact that, even if you kick off with a dam, it's not the dam seen in GoldenEye, but it's a dam, kind of sets the tone of the danger of things, which I think they did very, very nice. But then immediately you go to Thailand and you have this man with the golden gun and Tomorrow Never Dies. Tomorrow Never Dies, ladies and gentlemen, of the jury. So I love the combination of that, and they give the contestants very different challenges. And what this does for you is it sets up this whole block to boredom. If you're watching 8 contestants do the same thing over and over again, you're going to get bored. But they divvy it up. They have them go off in different directions, different locations, even different movies. And because of that, you see different aspects. But when they got to Austria, that was one of my favorite locations because they did 2 things. They had, first of all, Solden. I love Solden. Love me some Solden. So they did Solden, and they did a cable car moment in Solden that if it's a fantasy of yours, you have a death wish. But there's some moments with a cable car that really will leave you sort of chewing on your fingernails. But at the same time, you also had Austria, you had Vienna. And you had these like romantic, beautiful moments. You had things from Living Daylights, but you also had Spectre. So it caters to everybody. And that was something that, again, the first series did not really do. This one weaves the different movies, the different Bonds, the different flavors that you get as a Bond fan so successfully. And even when they go to Mexico, you've got License to Kill. And there's been this resurgence, this wonderful resurgence of Timothy Dalton. For you Timmy D fans, you're gonna be in heaven. The Mexico one is really cool because it's a race. And it's not like a race that you would imagine. Like you're wondering how are they going to have contestants race? Race in cars, race on mini bikes. What are they going to race in? You'll see. You got to watch it. And then also in Mexico, they start to really play with the idea of culture in a very successful way. And they have the contestants dress up around the Day of the Dead. And this was a very cool part because you're not just watching it for the show or the Bond moments. You're watching it for, dare I say, kind of like an HGTV travel log. They wound up taking us to the Day of the Dead spectacle, which I've been to with my wife Danielle, in the Zocalo, in the different parts. But this was one of the first times in the whole show that they have the contestants recognize that it's a scene from Spectre. And they call it out. They say, oh, remember the scene from Spectre? And it helps them actually win the competition, which is so cool that this recognizable Bond fan moment is not just called out for us as Bond fans, but it's utilized by the contestants themselves. By the time they get to the Bahamas and they have the underwater moments that you would imagine the Bahamas to have, but also the luxury moments, then you're kind of hooked, but you're invested, and then you realize that it's nearing an end. And I do want to talk about the ending, but I don't want to talk about the ending. I promised that I wouldn't spoil anything, but I will say this. There is an ending to this that it's more satisfying than season 1. You will walk away very satisfied, both visually, um, the group that wins it, you're going to have a lot of fun with them. You're going to be, I believe you're going to be air punching when you see who wins. And there's a little bit of dismay as well because the runner-ups to the top group that does compete in the end, they're great too. Like I'm hard pressed Well, I'll say this, just because it's my channel and I guess I can. I wasn't rooting for anybody to leave. There wasn't like a group where I'm like, yeah, beat it, hit the bricks, you, oh, you. They're all sort of affable, or, even the ones that just had like wow personalities, you were like, I'm enjoying watching them. And that's kind of a Bond film, right? You have all these different personalities together that are this potpourri of strategies and backgrounds and ideals. And this is not going to be a video where I go through every single personality, but I will say that some of my favorites, I mean, I love Dylan and Dan, father and son. They have a very moving story that really takes you through the challenges that they had to overcome before they came to the show. Kat and Maya, who are, to me, some of the strongest individuals on the show, but underestimated for sure. You've got also Ricky and Nadi, who really great friends, and we make friends in the Bond community, so you understand what their tie is. You've got Shabina and Sid, who definitely take the Mickey out of each other. I'll say that. Assad and Jamila. Now, Assad and Jamila could be my favorite group, could be my favorite team. I don't know, maybe. But as brother and sisters, there's so much love, and it's a different type of love than a spousal love. There's a love that really supports each other, wants each other to shine. You've got, of course, the personalities, the big personalities of Rob and Alex, especially Alex. Alex is a hoot. Alex had me, when I tell you that the funny is there, Alex had me laughing left and right. Every episode that Alex is in is hilarious. And just when you think a challenge is scary, Alex he brings the funny. Stephen and Shelley were great as well. And again, as I get it, as spouses, wanting to support each other, but knowing each other almost too well, they brought that to the table. Sam and Luke, I think, have the nice sort of panache of understanding strategy, but also adversity as well. I mean, again, I don't want to sit here and do 2.5 hours of each one of the teams because I think it gives too much away. All I will say is that there isn't a boring group. There just isn't. There's not a group where I'm just like, nothing. They're all fun. And you will probably be rooting for all of them at some point in time. Unfortunately, this is a game. Or fortunately, this is a game. And people do get eliminated, terminated, because it's Bond. I do want to add my 2 cents about areas that I still think need to be repaired, enhanced, tweaked. Let's say that. That's a much more positive way to say that. And I say this because when I did my videos in season 1, I offered the showrunners and the producers some helpful hints, and whether it was from me or many others, or analytics, who knows, data, analytics, insight, they changed the show, and they changed it for the better. So I'm going to offer 2 things. First of all, there was voiceovers that I didn't recognize. Like sometimes it was Brian Cox and sometimes it wasn't. And sometimes it was supposed to be him, but it wasn't him. So it was a little confusing with the voiceovers of MI6 at times. Like, who is it? There's different women's voices. And again, it was kind of technical, not really confusion. I got what was happening, but it kind of took me out of the experience. And it's such a high quality show. It was something I was craving. It's like, let's have consistency of Brian Cox's voice and or the woman's voice, but then all these multiple voices who you didn't know who they were. And I'm like, did they have editing changes afterwards? It just set up these question marks. The other thing is, producers. I'm going to ask for 2 things, of which you'll probably never grant me. But could you have like Uber Bond fans in here? Maybe like one couple that's an Uber Bond fan, husband and wife that just they're like super fans. They're fanatics. And maybe one of them lives, I don't know, in the United States. What? No. Me? No. It'd be too much. But really, I mean, seriously, not me, but it'd be great to move this to other parts of the world, whether it's the United States or France or Germany or Italy or, you know, Zimbabwe. It doesn't matter. Like just somebody, it's very UK focused. I get it, but it would be great to go outside of the British groups if you feel the need. I know James Bond is British. I'm well aware. And I love that. But it would be nice to sort of hearken outside of that and invite the rest of the world into the competition if there is a season 3. I think that if everybody gives this a try and sees the involvement, the enhancements, and yes, the improvements that I've seen from season 1 to season 2, there will be a season 3. So I enjoyed it. I'm going to tell my audience, like I'm telling right now, I would go see it. I would watch it. I would watch the episodes. Do yourself a favor. I sort of binged it. and many of the episodes are 30 minutes, 39, 40 minutes long. They're not huge investments in time, but I would space it out a couple of days, really enjoy it. And I think you'll get more out of it. You know, you'll have that kind of palate cleanser in between. But there you go. That's my opinion. That's my review. 007, Road to a Million, Season 2 in all its glory. Ladies and gentlemen, thanks so much. Go check it out yourself and give me your opinion below. I'm going to read every single one of them. In the meantime, this has been David Zaritsky for the Bond Experience. We'll see you real soon. Take care, everybody. Thanks for watching the Bond Experience. If you like what you saw, why don't you subscribe to the channel by clicking this button right here. We'll keep you up on everything new that's happening in the world of Bond. And speaking of something new, here's something new just for you because we know you so well. Talk to you soon.